Welcome to SSFL Premiership Division.
Yeah, we're sticking with football on this Friday edition of the SportsMax Zone. The hunt for the 2024 Secondary Schools Football League SSFL Premier Division still alive with just 2 rounds of matches remaining for most teams. 2022 champions St. Benedict's College currently lead the standings on 35 points, 6 ahead of the defending champions Fatima College, who are in second on 29, and 7 more than Presentation College, who sit in third on 28 points. But with the Pres Lions having contested 12 games so far, 1 fewer than both St. Benedict's and Fatima, there remains a slender possibility that the team from San Fernando can emerge champions. They'll need to remain perfect, though, for the rest of the campaign, starting with their matchup away to 7th placed St. Augustine on Saturday. Our football analyst and resident SSFL commentator Brent Sancho joins us via Zoom to assess Presentation's title chances, as well as the possibility of St. Benedict's finishing the division empty-handed, even if they do top the standings. So, Brent, we know about the off-field issues that St. Benedict's are being investigated for. Reminds us of Man City being investigated for financial improprieties, and they are a top team, and you know, they could lose the title in the steward's room, as you would put it. But how real is this trouble for St. Benedict's as they zone in on the title?
Well, good afternoon, Lance and Mariah. It's difficult to ascertain as to how deeper trouble St. Benedict's are in. Of course, the news broke hours before the encounter against Presentation College on last Wednesday that passed by. And I think because of that, and the information coming out, it's been drip, drop, and nothing conclusive, as it would say. Of course, everything hinges around the eligibility of Daryl Garcia, the forward and captain for St. Benedict's College, and an integral part for that team, and whether or not his stint away in Spain has hindered whether or not he is a bona fide student in the school. Again, Lance and Mariah, the information coming out is still nothing conclusive so far, and there's not been a statement by the SSFL, the governing body for football, high school football in Trinidad and Tobago. So we still wait and see as, of course, the news continues to come in.
Yeah, and before we move on to the football itself, just to be clear, the Ministry of Education has apparently made some statements about Zoom Garcia not being properly registered for the 2024 SSFL campaign, and some procedural issues that in the end could mean that he's been playing as an ineligible player, which means that they would sacrifice points for all of the victories that they have had with him playing, if it is that the Ministry of Education's findings become as impactful or as influential as the grapevine is suggesting.
Yeah, I think, of course, the question remains of whether or not he is or still is a student. In his stint away, it's whether or not he's deregistered, from what I understand from the information that has been circulated. The question really comes down to the factor of whether or not his time away took him out of school. Now, the procedures here in Trinidad and Tobago, as I understand, it means the Ministry of Education and the school will have to suggest or state emphatically, either writing or through correspondence, that this student is no longer a student of the school. It is not clear that that happened. If anything, Lance, the miscommunication or the missteps would have taken place somewhere between the Ministry of Education and the school. From an SSSL perspective, of course, this school is a school league, as you know, which falls under the Ministry of Education. It's whether or not how impactful that is, or if it is even a situation. There's also, of course, the question marks surrounding of how the information was initially got out into the public. Of course, the publication that carried the information, does have, as they say, a horse in the race, because the chief editor for that publication is a manager for Arima North Secondary. So I think when you add up all the facts and what has transpired, I'd be interested. I do feel personally that it seems to be a question between ethical and legal. And of course, you would not like to see, and I think this has been the sentiments of everyone that's involved in secondary school football and most of Trinidad and Tobago, you do not want to see this league decided in a boardroom. Because truth be told, St. Benedict's College has been the outstanding school so far this season. And it would be an absolute travesty if all the work that has been put in and the football that has been played by this school comes to naught.
Brent, in your time covering the SSFL, do you remember any incident that was similar to this? And if so, do you remember how long it took to come to some sort of decision? Because for me now, looking at the quality of Zoom, just the way he goes about his business, the goals that he's scoring, the excitement when he scores these goals, I feel as if now I am so invested in what the outcome is.
Yeah, I think that's the issue here. This is not the first time we're having a conversation about eligibility of players. It happened last season as well. It happened the season before that. And even if you go all the way back to Shiva Boys, they also had their challenges when it relates to that. I think the question really is how do they stop this from happening? And that's a question really for the SSFL and the Ministry of Education. Because in Jamaica, for example, there's ESA that governs all school sporting activities and processes that come with it. And if you go further up north to North America, in the US, for example, there's the NCAA clearinghouse that has a clear handle as to how these situations are handled. So clearly the SSFL are having challenges when it comes to these sorts of situations. And at some point, and I hope it is this year and now, that they find ways to fix it, because at the end of the day, as you rightfully alluded to, this is not the first time we've had these sorts of conversations or these sorts of discrepancies. There must be a way to govern this situation better, that we don't have every single season a situation that comes up that of course threatens the integrity of the competition. And more importantly, the kids are the ones that, if you look at everything that has transpired over the couple of years and these types of situations, they're the ones that suffer the most.
Yeah, another one more for him, Lance. Did you get an opportunity to interview Zoom? And what is his mindset like, seeing that, the news not too long broke before the match and everything against Presentation? What's his mood like? I know it's not affecting him because the goals came, but did you chat with him?
Yeah, I did have a chat with him. His mood is brilliant. I actually interviewed him against East Mokorapo about 2 weeks ago. And I asked him at the halftime break if he believes that he will get on the score sheet. He did just that, not once, but twice. And I asked him a similar question at halftime, how situations have impacted him. He said the coach made it clear to them that they have business to do on the field and the administrators would take care of stuff off the field. And I did follow up that question by asking him, do you think you could repeat what you did against East Mokorapo? And he said, of course I can. And he went on to score as well. So to answer your question, from a psychological point of view, he is just fine. And as you recognize in the game, he was the different maker. Of course, the free kick for the first goal from St. Benedict's came from an action from him moving out left and being impeded, which led to a foul and a free kick by Pierre that ended up in the back of the net. And then the second goal was special from him, chasing about 40 yards and finishing from a very tight situation with the ball bouncing high and putting it past goalkeeper Phillips. So if there was anything that was bothering him, he certainly didn't show it in Wednesday's fixture.
Yeah, but Brent, for the purpose of information for our viewers, this issue was triggered by the fact that he had been away on trial in Europe, I think. How long was he away for, and how much school did he miss before coming back into the system?
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of the questions are being asked, because there's nothing concrete. We know that he was away in Spain for a period of time. As to the length of time he was away and the amount of school he's missed, I think that's where the question marks are being asked. But I think, Lance, it really circles back to the fact of the rules, laws that govern whether or not a student is a bona fide student in the school or not. and whether or not a school can be deregistered. That is the word you're hearing used a lot when it comes to this situation. That is a process that it really is difficult to deregister a young man from a school or young lady from any school in Trinidad and Tobago, and whether or not he was deregistered or no longer a student in that school. And I think that is where everything hinges on, as it relates to the particulars, to the time, whether or not that situation, whether or not the proper paperwork, or etc., transpired. That is inconclusive because, again, as I said, a lot of what we hear and reports that we are seeing have been coming in from various angles, but nothing seems to be from a source that we could suggest, quote unquote, legitimate, because we have not heard anything from Ministry of Education, we have not heard anything from the SSFL, and we certainly haven't heard anything from St. Benedict's as to a press release or anything of that sort stating their position on this particular situation.
Yeah, all right, Brent, let's finally move to the football now, because St. Benedict's are in pole position. They would have to falter very, very badly for the remaining couple of games for the season to not win this title on points. What happens in the boardroom is something else. But I know Presentation College with a game in hand. I think they play St. Augustine on Saturday. Yeah. Very important for them that they win all their remaining games to put themselves in the position to win the championship if something happens and St. Benedict's don't go all the way. But the odds obviously heavily favor St. Benedict's. They have been so good all season. It's hard to envisage them stumbling at this stage.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And what we've seen from St. Benedict's throughout the season is that they have been clinical. Garcia has been certainly a cut above most players that we've seen throughout this SSFL season. He's been a match winner for them on several occasions. And despite the fact that he is so good, St. Benedict's also have a very good supporting cast. Whether you look at Ochoa, LaShawn Morris, Burke on one side, Trotman on the other side. Individually, they have been very, very solid. And I think they've been well coached by Coach Boyce, who understands exactly where his strengths in his team lie. They've been very rigid defensively, something a lot of people don't speak about when you talk about St. Benedict's College. Presentation College dominated in terms of territory and possession throughout the game on Wednesday, but they didn't really cut open any clear-cut opportunities, and that speaks to the type of football and the type of approaches from St. Benedict's. They've been very professional, and if you look at it from all of the teams in the league, you would have to say Presentation and Fatima College have been second to St. Benedict's College, but it's not been a close second. It's been a distant second as it relates to the type of results and the type of performances. St. Benedict's have been consistent in what they've done, and there's certainly good value for money as to where they position on the table.
Yeah, and I know Presentation's coach Sean Cooper is a pretty solid coach, and I guess he'll have all his ducks in a row to ensure that they get maximum points against St. Anthony's on Saturday.
Yeah, he will. I mean, he was, speaking to him after the game, Lance, he was very disappointed, and rightfully so. His team did have, as I mentioned, territorial advantage, but just that quality needed in the final third was not there. And truth be told, both goals from St. Benedict's College came against the runner play. But once Presentation got into advanced positions, they weren't able to capitalize on the situations that they created. And that would be a big disappointment for him, as he mentioned after the game, something that he certainly feels would have hampered them from getting a result against St. Benedict's College. That being said, they still have fixtures remaining. The title has not been decided yet on the field, and there's still points to play for. We come up against a very tricky St. Anthony's College, who lost their last fixture to a very inconsistent Malik. But one thing about St. Anthony's College, they rise to the occasion when it comes to teams that are ahead of them. We saw them live here on SportsMax beating Fatima College, and they do have players that could certainly cause Presentation a problem or two. So I'm very sure Coach Cooper is aware of that and has to make sure that his players are well on their guard and to continue to try to keep St. Benedict's under pressure.
Right, well, Brent will be keeping a very, very close eye on the point standings as well as how the situation unfolds with Zoom Garcia, and we'll keep in touch with you, of course. So thank you so much for stopping by on this Friday edition of the SportsMax Zone. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a great Friday.
You too. Happy Friday. That's Brent Sancho there, former Soca Warrior, former Minister of Sport, and I can go on, but we're going to have to go to a break.
SSFL Premiership Division.
Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. We continue talking football. Well, of course, we're moving now to JPL, and there were two rescheduled fixtures in the Jamaica top flight on a Thursday. The Ray and Nephew Jamaica Premier League. At the Stadium Eastfield in Kingston, strugglers Malines United and Tivoli Gardens played to a 0-0 draw, and over in St. Anne at Draxall, it was a similar 0-0 result between host Mount Pleasant and Waterhouse. Well, coach Marcel Gale and Waterhouse, with that point away to Mount Pleasant, have moved to joint top of the standings with Montego Bay United on 13 points. Portmore, Cavalier, Mount Pleasant and Arnett Gardens round out the top 6 spots. Well, at the foot of the table, we see Don Beholden in 14th position, yet to get off the mark, albeit after just 4 matches. Well, promoted Racing United and Malines United are the other strugglers with 4 points. Jamaica Premier League action continues on Sunday with the start of match day 7. 4 matches are scheduled on the day. Well, pointless Don Beholden are at home to Harbourview. So then we have Montego Bay United versus Portmore. Malines, they play Humble Lion, and Mount Pleasant versus Tivoli. All right, so the SportsMax production team will travel to Draxall in St. Anne for our feature doubleheader. The early match at 1 p.m. 2 Eastern Caribbean time sees Malines and Humble Lion doing battle. And at 3:15 p.m., 4:15 Eastern Caribbean time, you'll see the home team, Mount Pleasant, they take on Tivoli Gardens. Well, both Mount Pleasant and Tivoli Gardens will enter the contest on somewhat indifferent form, as they have just 3 wins between them this season. Following their 0-0 draws in Thursday's rescheduled matches, both head coaches lamented their team's readiness. Well, we have this one from Theodore Tapper Whitmore. He says, I think we were poor today. We didn't give up our best. We were lacking in some areas in terms of our offensive plays. But you know, it's a point. You just have to come again and regroup. We didn't create enough chances this afternoon. Our final action in the final third were questioning. We didn't turn up, and Malines were the better team from start to finish. As the coach, I'll have to see what we could have done better. This team has only won 1 game so far, and it doesn't look good on our part. We just have to continue working and see how we can find the right chemistry. So, Lance, not the start to the season both teams were expecting. I expected better from Mount Pleasant. It's a team that, you know, I have a lot of time for. And with Coach Tapper, you'd expect that they would be firing.
Yeah, and you know what? They have too much quality on their roster not to be getting goals. Apart from the fact that they would be happy that they didn't concede any goals, it would be worrying for Coach Whitmore to have a team with such offensive quality to be not scoring. To play 90 minutes and not get any goals would be troubling. But it's still pretty early in the season, and there is a lot of time for Mount Pleasant to get their act together, as I expect they will.
And Mount Pleasant, I just want to add that this is their 3rd consecutive draw. It's not something that's very common with them. So a lot of people, I mean, the Mount Pleasant fans are a bit uneasy.
Yeah, with good reason. As I said, their roster is good. They have a lot of spend, which they have, you know, lavished over the years on players that they want on their roster, and they usually get the players they want. So it would be troubling for the owners and Coach Whitmore that they aren't getting those results. But remember the summer issue with Whitmore having his contract not renewed, and then at the last minute being brought back. That was an untidy start to the season for Mount Pleasant. So having said that, it is an atmosphere that he's been accustomed to for a couple of years now. So the issue of him acclimatizing and getting himself, back in business shouldn't be a real issue for him because he knows.
I would think so.
Yeah, he knows the culture of the club. But as I said, I wouldn't be alarmed, really. I think it would be disappointing for him that his team didn't get goals here. There was a disallowed goal that we just saw as well. But it's too early in the season to me for anyone to press any panic buttons. I think Jerome Waite, the Tivoli coach, would be concerned about the start that he has had because there was a lot of energy from the Tivoli performance last season that gave their fans a lot of hope for what could happen this season, and they haven't started well. Just one win from their five matches so far, so that would be a concern for them.
Yeah, and Tivoli have only scored 2 goals from their 5 matches. What do you think has gone wrong for Jerome Waite's team?
Yeah, well, Justin Dunn, their ace striker, who was among the top scorers in the league last year for the Golden Boot, isn't firing this year. He hasn't hit top form. So because he is so much a part of their offensive plan, if he isn't in form, then I guess it would hurt Tivoli a bit. But I expect them to rebound as well because Jerome Waite is a pretty studious coach, and I expect that he'll resuscitate the team to the levels at least to what we saw last year, which was pretty good. They got to the playoffs.
Yeah, well, we have these matches on the channel this week, Lance, and I'm hoping that maybe this weekend I can find some time to go watch. I know the players love when I come.
Yeah, you were there a couple of weeks ago. You went and watched a Sunday afternoon match.
It was so good. I had a good time, and I love the soup people. I always talk about it.
The soup.
There's a lady that sells soup.
Was this at the Trenchtown Sport, at Anthony Spalding Sports
Anthony
Complex?
Spalding, yeah, producer's reminding me.
Yeah, that Arnett Garn's home ground, yeah.
You should come with me. People always ask me for you.
I'll be there next time.
I'm putting him on the spot. We're going to take a quick break and come right back.